Hello viewers, my name is Adam and this is Siki Media Productions, here to bring you another of our film series based off of Christopher Nolan's filmography. And in this video, I will be, at least, doing the film Inception, way back in 2010. And right around this video, this is around its 10th anniversary. And also the reason why we're doing these Christopher Nolan related movies is because up until now, Tenet, which is supposedly around the corner, we don't know. Hopefully will be something that we'll be able to watch come that time. But until then, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this 10-year-old film that's apparently one of the most pinnacle of Christopher Nolan's career. But as you can see, I'm the one doing this review, despite in a previous video back when we did the Christopher Nolan The Dark Knight trilogy, my brother and I will be doing each of these films. But due to some reasonings of not doing the review, Aaron's not going to be sharing his thoughts.
I thought the movie sucked!
Aaron, you said your piece. You're not going to do this review.
It still sucks!
More than welcome to join me.
Nah, you good.
So what's Inception? Alright, so as you know, Inception is a science fiction heist film. We're set in a world where human beings are able to enter each other's subconsciouses, also known as dreams. And the main character, by the name of Cobb, is a person on the run due to him being an international thief who is willing and able to gather up a team of crew and steal information through people's subconsciousness. It's technically more of a straightforward heist film in that sense, but it gets into more genre-related tropes when it delves into the science fiction aspect of dream sharing. Despite all that, Inception still retains so much of Christopher Nolan's typical tropes, i.e. the film is heavily grounded in a noir aesthetic. Very toned, is some somber, moody atmosphere. You have a character, the main character at least, has this obsession of his talents and also a past that he's trying to run from, as well as Christopher Nolan's common element in his filmmaking, which is how he's able to manipulate time through the story. Time being used in this film is how much longer, or how people's reality of time is affected depending on how well or how long they are in a dream. And that is factored out throughout the film and way towards the climax and a lot of the more psychological issues that happens with the characters. But I feel as though it's because of Christopher Nolan's vision and his essentially his more his more being comfortable with those recurring tropes is what brings this movie as at least not to as much of his ambitions. Because essentially you have a filmmaker whose aesthetic is ultimately very conservative. When it comes in with dreams, you will think that the genre will actually be a lot more manipulated into something that's essentially genre bending, and it can be one thing to another, essentially, since dreams are very different depending on everybody. There should be a varied experience depending on who you jump into, and I'll dive more to that once we get into the production. But as far as characters wise, there's not really much I can say about the characters, depending on the fact that all the cast members, they're all well-established actors, but they're essentially playing off of tropes from almost every other heist film that you can even think of. If you were to use a cast of Ocean's 11, and insert them into the tone that Christopher Nolan is known for, you essentially have Inception. But in this film, Christopher Nolan is using a cast led by Leonardo DiCaprio, who essentially is something that Christopher Nolan tend to use for his films, who is the hottest actor at the moment, and have him lead in his film. And Leonardo DiCaprio is essentially the person who has the more meaty role due to him having such a role that's very accustomed to Christopher Nolan's themes. But you have a character, something that he also have is that's usually used in mostly almost every other film, who is played by Ellen Page, is essentially the person who's like the everyday like sidekick, who her characters are able to essentially speak exposition to, due to Christopher Nolan need to really flesh out the world that he's making. It's essentially insert good actor here. But I like this. Finally brings me to the production, which I like to emphasize most of my troubles with this film. Like again, I said that this is a very conservative, like, approach to this subject matter. Typically, Christopher Nolan is very comfortable with doing certain things, and his aesthetic is very prevalent in this film, down to the characters usually always wearing suits, the very muddled but dark color palette. It doesn't really cause for something that's dream and screaming real out loud, especially when it easily could have been something that's horror, and when dealing with nightmares. You can probably enter somebody's mind and something perverted, or something that's very much more on the more fantastical element, side of things, especially if you're dealing with probably something who has very eccentric personality to begin with. But because Nolan very sticks with very stagnant personalities to begin with, unfortunately the subject matter falls flat to the production side of things. Now, to be fair, Inception does have some filmmaking elements that is worth looking at, especially worth studying, given the fact that Christopher Nolan himself is still a filmmaker who continually and gradually improves upon how he approached the filmmaking aspect. Again, Christopher Nolan is someone who tends to favor practicality in his work, and it very much shows through a lot of the set pieces that he's able to, and his crew is able to develop. Another recurring element that Christopher Nolan tends to use is the composer of Hans Zimmer, someone who is a recurring composer who, and in this film, does create something that's memorable and I'll say trailblazing, but in the sense of this is the film where you get the occasional boom sound effect. This is the film where that originated from. It's not the fact that it's something that I'll say is against the film, because Hans Zimmer, he rarely composes a score that is not worth listening to. But despite all that, Christopher Nolan's Inception falls on the trappings of not being imaginative enough. And this is the reason why I have to give Inception just an okay review. Aaron over there thinks it's just completely flat out.
Oh, it's no, I just can't.
Here's the thing. I remember, I actually watched this film once this was released. It was at Disney World, and the second to last time we was there, and we went to the theaters, and it's one of the films that we were still on the Dark Knight high of Christopher Nolan's heyday, and I was really to watch it. And so, long story short, throughout the film, initially I was still engaged with Inception, especially since me being more of developing into the film student that I am now. Aaron fell asleep about third way through, and not to be fair, he did one time, probably in film school, he was able to watch the film straight through, and he still thinks that the film falls on a lot of his trappings, and that's why he thinks the way he does. But there you have it. That was my review of Christopher Nolan's film Inception. Please like, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're here. We like to know what you're thinking about. Let's talk some movies, and be sure to check out other great films, reviews, TV, live media content. Thank you.